Now, Mark, your daughter, Maddie, suffered terribly. She went down from a healthy weight, there she is, to 5.5 stone when she was 18, and you've been very open about what happened. You feel at times you handled it badly.
I handled it badly. Yeah, I did handle it very badly. Yeah, I mean, she's 5'10", and she went from 9.5 stone to about 5 stone very quickly. And no, I did handle it very badly, and I didn't realise what it was. I thought it was a fad. I thought it was a teenage thing, not eating, and I, sort of started shouting at her to just eat. I didn't realise that it was a mental illness. And once you realise that it's a mental illness, you change your attitude towards the way you view it. And I didn't do that. I just thought it was this sort of teenage thing, and I got it badly wrong. And the question I think you're asking is, is tough love okay? Well, I gave a tough love, I suppose. I started shouting at her, and in the end, I was exasperated. I couldn't stop it. She was literally wasting away in front of us, dying, and she became skeletal and she covered in sores, and it's a terrible thing. And at one stage, I said to her, if you want to kill yourself, go ahead and kill yourself. And that was probably the worst thing I could have said. And just come on, eat, and and I can remember making porridge one morning, and she agreed to eat for once. So I said, I'll make you porridge. And she sort of went out, and I went to the fridge and got some cream to try and put cream in the porridge. And she saw me do it, and that was the worst thing I could have done. And then no trust, she became vile. We had a terrible relationship, and it breaks my heart. But there was no help. And, it took a long while to get it sorted. Mercifully, we did get it sorted, but we went through hell, and other families the same,
Yeah.
So.
Now, you've done a lot raising awareness, making documentaries and films, and this is a clip of you two for Heads Together.
I couldn't understand what was going through your mind.
I think I always had this underlying depression, this underlying low, where I always felt like I wasn't good enough. The only way I felt like I could show the world that I wasn't okay was by controlling my eating, by losing weight, by having this one thing that I could control. And anorexia was a way of me showing that I wasn't okay.
I'm wondering, Kate, if that echoes with you, because you had your own issues when you were a teenager.
Yeah, so much of it, that word control. Listening to a father say, just eat. It's like listening to my dad. Listening to you acknowledge that this is a mental illness. And once you understand that, you understand. But your daughter's going through it at a time when there is far more education around this. Thankfully, I was doing this to myself in the late 80s, well, mid 80s. There was nothing. My parents were so alone with having to seek any kind of help, and my mum got it. I was very lucky. My mum understood that this was a mental illness and that I needed talking therapies to get myself better.
I know your dad did what Mark did, which is to say, just eat.
Please just eat.
But I've seen at some point you saying, you think in a strange way it did help you. Is that right?
What triggered my recovery, I overheard my, I overheard my mum on the phone to the Samaritans. Back in the day when we all had landlines like the one on your publicity photo from earlier, Mark. And I was sat at the top of the stairs and I heard her crying on the phone. And I thought she was talking to a friend, and I was furious that she was talking about me with her friends, because you are so insular, you are so secretive when you are in the grip of an eating disorder. And then I realised it was, and I could see, I knew she was, when I found out she was talking to the Samaritans, and then I could see the toll it was taking on them. I think ultimately I loved them more than I loved the control that an eating disorder gave me. I couldn't bear to break their hearts anymore. And I was threatened with hospitalisation, which took away my control. And control is everything in an eating disorder.
Well, yeah.
I'm terrified now about, I'll be really honest, because I think you have to be really honest. I'm not happy with the weight I am at the moment, but I won't do anything about it because I don't trust that I know when to stop. And I have not been ill since I was 16 and I'm 45 years old.
Wow, that's because I'm wondering whether it's a condition you don't ever stop having.
I manage it much like an alcoholic will always be an alcoholic. I will always be somebody that had an issue with food. I have a really healthy relationship with food now, in as much as I love it. I love it probably too much. And I won't allow myself to go on a diet. I will eat better, but I don't count calories. We don't have scales in the house. And when I can feel that I'm getting a little bit extreme with exercise, for example, I have to have a word with myself.
Dane,
it's still there, it's still there.
Any experience of this in your family at all? Or?
Maybe not direct experience as far as anorexia, but then at the same time, I guess it all comes under the umbrella, or eating disorders come under the same umbrella of body dysmorphia anyway. So what you find sometimes at the other end of the spectrum of eating disorders or depriving yourself is then you have people that will binge eat or maybe eat too much. And I think it's all down to the fact that it's, as Kate said, it's a function of control. Or, I mean, I guess it's all down to the act of trying to fill a spiritual or psychological hole with something physical. And I guess people turn to food because they feel like they're filling the hole. But I guess, yeah, I feel like I've experienced it with close family members who have maybe used food in order to medicate themselves with it. And I guess, you think about the chemical composition of some food that people consume. Like, there's a lot of excitotoxins and there's a lot of aspects of food. Like sugar can be very, very addictive and can provide a temporary high, just like the same kind of gratification you get from any kind of, Class A drug. So it can be very difficult.
The nurse said, look, you've got two choices. You can go on the track you're going and you will die, or you can make a decision now to get better and live your life in a relatively normal way. And Maddie took the right decision, and she just got on with this particular nurse, and she.
Michelle's still there, so listening.
Yeah,
I hope it was helping Michelle. Yeah, Kate, say something to Michelle.
I'd really love to chime in on this because I'm literally like this listening to you because I just want to make it better for you. And I want you to know that people do get better from this. It's not something you carry forever. You learn to manage it, and I am absolutely 100% living proof of that. Early intervention, you're so right. But for me, therapy didn't exist at that time, and there was nothing on the NHS in the mid-80s really for children like me. I found my mum took me to a GP, and I wouldn't even talk to the GP in front of my mum. I gave her. I was so difficult to manage, just like your daughter is right now. And this GP just chimed in on me, and we had a chemistry, and therapy is so much like relationships. Sometimes you need to hit it off with somebody, and just what you've recited there. She said to me, she said, "Do you want this to define the rest of your life? You're a smart girl. The fact that you are," and I will never talk about how I starved myself because there are people out there that will then use that information like a manual, and that's massively irresponsible. And I think as broadcasters, we have to take that on board.
We've actually got Sam here, who has personal experience of this.
Yes, I did have anorexia in the mid-90s, and of course there was no help at that time. Of course, I was skin and bone. My cousin actually saw me at a wedding and said, "Oh my God, look at you." And I thought that I was just the perfect weight. But, he said to me, "There's so much more to you, an intelligent woman. You've got so much going for you. Is that what you want?" And from that moment, I started to look at other things that made me happy, what was important and the things. And from there, day by day, started to work with myself, and I got away from it. But of course,
it's
it
so
never
interesting
leaves
that
you.
all the stories involve just one critical intervention from somebody.
Yes. Well, I mean, if you want to become like psychology, if you want to put as a psychology to it, it's about tapping into your sense of ego, right? It's a stat that people with eating disorders tend to be quite intelligent, right? Just that they are high functioning, they are well organised. And what was put to me was, imagine what you could do if you put all of those skills into something really productive, like an amazing life, where you don't sit and be a slave to the scales, counting calories. Think what you can do. And to anybody out there, who is struggling with this illness, I went on and had the most spectacular life. I've seen the world. I've done things that I thought I would never, ever do. And I never would have done had I not listened and pulled myself out of it. It's not easy.
Hard.
It's not easy.
I know this idea that mental illness is a choice. We're almost
It's not a choice. It's not a choice.
Exactly. That's the idea that you can just say, all right, I'm going to have a different life. I know it's a fork in the road, isn't it? That's all.
It's whether or not
it's also about resources, and there are not the resources.
I guess the tough love really can be applied in terms of you empowering that person, because it's about control. So I guess it's appealing to that sense of control, not only by saying to them, like, you're an intelligent person, you're capable of so much. I mean,
yeah.
I don't take it as tough love. I just thought as a loving thing to say.
Got it.
And you know, you need sensitivity, not tough love.
Sam, let me just go to
his opinion quickly on that. It's like turning a liner. You just have to gently nurture your thought patterns.
I've just on the phone. We got Dr. Sandeep Ranote, who's an advisor for the eating disorder charity Beat. So it sounds as if all the stories here come down to one moment where somebody says the right thing and it helps the person. Is that right?
First of all, good morning, Jeremy,
Hi
and
there.
thank you for covering eating disorders as your issue ahead of World Mental Health Day. Your guests have summarised everything so beautifully. I would support everything everyone said. One of the things I do want to say, listening to Michelle and Mark's story, it does upset me, but there is hope, and I think that's what we heard as well. You can get better, but you do need that early intervention. You do need the specialist help and support. Why? Because this is real illness. It's not made up. This is not parents to blame or young people to blame. It's real illness in the same way diabetes and asthma and epilepsy are. So we shouldn't accept it. People have said there wasn't the help available. Some people are saying they're still not getting that access to. Yeah, you're right. That relationship with one person is often critical, but it has to be a team, a specialist team. So I think Mark said the dietitian alone wasn't enough.
Is there
so you need that team of people?
Understood. Is there any one sign that will tell you that your daughter is if it's usually a daughter is vulnerable? Something that you can see even before they do.
Okay. And I speak as a professional, but also as a parent of 3 boys. So remember that boys get eating disorders too. So we must always think about things like, a young person, parents are the experts on their young people. They know when something has changed, behaviour changed, getting more withdrawn from their peer group, not wanting to do the things that they love doing. One of your guests said, a lot of people who suffer with eating disorders are very structured, are very organised, are very high functioning. Grades dropping, not performing as well in the whole sphere. Obviously losing weight, but not always losing weight, because there are eating disorders like bulimia, like binge eating, where weight loss doesn't happen, or if it starts to happen, it can happen very quickly. Low mood, irritability, tiredness. So if you go on the Beat website, really good resource to have a look at those early warning signs.
Thank you.
They're doing a campaign at the moment that's something like NIPS, tips, KIPS. There's a really useful way for parents and teachers and other people to recognise those early warning signs.
All right. Thank you very much, Dr. Sandeep Ranote. Thank you for sharing your stories as well at home.